Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Ball is Round. I'm Heidi Raphael, and tonight on the show, we'll take a quick look at the MLS playoffs. For the first part of our postmortem, we'll rate Olivier Renard, Laurent Courtois, and Gabriel Gervais' work. And last but not least, we'll take a look at goalkeepers and defenders. That and a lot more on episode 202 of The Ball is Round. Hello, everyone. Super happy to be here with you guys for another episode of The Ball is Round. As usual, I'm joined by my good friends, Elias Gregoriadis and Andy Coronado. Hey, friends, how are you today?
Good. I'm excited to get through my first postmortem for this team, and yeah, just excited. This is gonna be really fun today.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Elias, how are you, man?
Oh, Barcelona won again. Life is
Yeah, I
good.
was going to talk about that.
Who is
Oh,
that?
amazing. Good evening, Patrick. Welcome to the show, obviously. But yeah,
Yeah,
Barcelona win again. Can't believe the men's side is finally doing well too, right? The real
yeah.
Barcelona team, aka the women's side, have been doing great for so long, but
Barcelona.
now to see the men catch up and finally pull their weight, it's nice.
Hey, Matthew, also joining us today. Thank you for being here every week. Patrick, Matthew, all people that are here from week to week, and I really love it. Um, you talked about, of course, Barcelona, Elias, but I'm pretty sure when you were watching the game, you were watching a certain Justin Smith that got his first minutes in La Liga, the Canadian center back that played a bit midfielders too. Um, we know he's born in France, but he has a Canadian citizenship. How did you find him?
In the second half, especially, Espanyol did a lot better. So I think that they had a much better job. They did a much better job at kind of mitigating all of Barcelona's attacks. So I guess that's kind of a credit to maybe that's a good notch for his cameo. But all in all, it's never good to compare it to judge your play when you're playing against Barcelona, especially with the
Of
form they're
course,
in.
of course,
But
for sure.
no, it's still great to see, right? Because La Liga is still a huge league.
Yeah,
Espanyol, despite their season, is still a really big club and a really important club in that league. So look, getting Canadians in those situations is super important.
yeah, it's immense. Exactly, it is immense. And Andy, Bayern Munich, three
Yes, sir.
zero against Union Berlin.
Yeah, oh, man,
Happy about
uh,
that?
yeah. Well, it's always exciting. I mean, this team is only expected to win nowadays. As a fan, you if they lose, it is catastrophic. It is the end of the world. So always nice to see them just kind of live up to their expectations. I haven't been following them as closely as I used to be, but yeah, we'll see. They're an up and down kind of season right now, unfortunately, but we'll see. Hopefully, this is a start of good things to come.
Yeah, hopefully it is the start of good things to come, as you said. And just to let you know, guys, of course, Marseille won 2-1, and they're back in second place. I'm really super happy to see that. Derek Cornelius played as a left center, as a left back in that game for 20 minutes, and then he got injured. It seemed very bad because he got moved out on a stretcher.
Oh damn!
So that was, yeah, it's a bit concerning, unfortunately, but he played okay. Ishmael Kone was a starter. He played very well. He could have been better. It was his first start with the club. He gave an assist though, so that was pretty good. So and that's Robbie here. Hey Robbie, thank you for being here with us. So yeah, we do have a special guest today. Of course, none other than
Oh,
Capi, than the legend, than Patrice Bernier, fresh off a big important thing that just happened to him. Congratulations, Patrice, of being with the Panthéon du Sport au Québec. So that's great. Congratulations. Pretty sure you're very happy
Uh,
about that.
Thanks. Hi, Elias. Hi, Andy. I think first time we meet things in terms of under these circumstances. But yeah, thank you. It was a great day last Monday to be inducted into the if you could say the Hall of Fame of Quebec sports. So yes, nice to be with you. And then yes, we'll be I guess chatting soccer and mostly CF Montreal.
Exactly. Chatting soccer, CF Montreal. Elias was telling us that he loved that game between Barcelona and Espanyol. I don't know if you had time to watch it today.
No, weekends,
No.
I barely get chance to watch football these days. So even missed most of the Clásico not too long ago. But Barcelona is doing well. They're running. Hansi Flick is really doing something special in Barcelona with all these youngsters and all the injuries they've had at the beginning of the year. So I'm pleased. Let's say those things they help out in terms of finish off the weekend on a good note.
Exactly. I completely agree. Patrice, we do have Matthew asking you a question. Are you the first soccer player to be inducted in the Hall of Fame of sports in Quebec?
No, in the Panthéon du Sport, John Limiares was
Oh, nice.
inducted, I think, in 2013, if I remember the correct timeline. And then there's other people from soccer, but we are the two, I think, only soccer players, because I think Sonia Denonco, which was a referee, is in it. And if I'm correct, also Brigitte Fro, who was president of Soccer Quebec back in the day, or other, if you could say, soccer representatives. But two players I'm the second, and I'm with John. And I'm sure those who know John Limiares, he's probably going, "Yes, I'm the first. I'm the first." But yeah, which is quite stunning, because when I was announced, or when they told me this was in March, I looked. I said, "Oh, how many soccer players? There must be a few." And there was only John. So it's funny that in soccer there's only one, now two inductees, with several people who had great careers. So hopefully those will be times that will be changing, and there'll be more to come.
Yeah, hopefully it will happen very, very soon. We have Wellington telling you hi, also Patrice.
Yeah,
Wellington,
hello,
that's
hello.
also one of our usual listeners. So let's go right into it. First of all, we'll look at the playoffs, the MLS playoffs, because there was a big upset today with Columbus Crew being eliminated from the MLS Cup playoffs. First game they played at home against Red Bulls. The Red Bulls won in Columbus 1-0. Second game was just a few minutes ago. Red Bulls were winning 2-1, then equalizer from Christian Ramirez, and right after penalties. And Carlos Coronel had an amazing game, an amazing performance in penalties, saving the last three of the crew. Patrice, I'll start with you. You're the special guest. How is that possible? Nobody would have thought that Columbus Crew would have been eliminated after only the first round of playoffs. So how do you think this happened?
Look, even funnier is they were eliminated losing a home game in the first game, which is something that's rare, beating Columbus in Columbus. But kudos to Red Bulls, because we are saying it's a surprise, but Red Bulls really played. I saw bits and parts of the first game, but I saw the second game, and even the second game, I was like, I don't feel Columbus is going to come out of this winning, or at least dominating as easy or as they have done during the season. Because Red Bulls really applied a good pressure, sometimes man to man, and really making life difficult for Columbus. And I think, it's a surprise, but good thing. It just shows that in this league, there are no dynasties, even though you dominate in the league. And
Only
I don't
Seattle.
know
Only Seattle.
exactly. And I don't know if you watched yesterday, even Inter Miami, Atlanta.
Yeah.
Atlanta deserves that win. So
Yeah.
it just shows that you may be good in the marathon, but when it comes to the sprint, certain teams are well equipped to win games when they need it. And kudos to some goalies, because Coronel did really well. Zach McMath, even though they're out did really well for Salt Lake, and Dane Sinclair was fantastic also for Minnesota. So
Minnesota.
Columbus, yeah, I think it's good. It will challenge Wilfred Nussey to probably find other solutions with teams that have found a blueprint to how to stop them. So
Here.
this will be interesting to see what's happened next year for Columbus, how they will change it up. But Red Bulls, kudos. They've been good, Red Bulls. I've watched them this season. They've changed a bit their model in the last few years, last 2-3 years, and getting Emil Forsberg and the right pieces. They're
What a
back
great
to
player.
being a solid team in playoffs.
It's important to remember, right, that they started the season off really hot.
Yeah.
They were in amazing form at the beginning of the season, and it wasn't a fluke. That was all merit, and then injuries and other MLS shenanigans right gets in the way. But they're a top team, and they're a dark horse now. You beat Columbus, you have to watch out.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And they become, as you said, a part of the favorites just by beating Columbus, exactly as you said, Elias. And Pat gave us a good transition talking about Atlanta. We all thought, and I remember when CF Montreal lost against Atlanta at home again at Stade Saputo, a lot of people were predicting and saying, oh, they're going to be crushed by Inter Miami. And then you see those two games. They barely lost the first game 2-1. Then they won the second game 2-1. Yes, it was very close. Yes, they scored around the 93rd or 94th minute with a great goal, by the way. But Elias, how do you think there's that possibility for Atlanta United to win that third game in Miami? Is that something that's plausible?
Absolutely, it's plausible. Look, you have to remember, Miami still has this gift, this superpower to concede 1 or 2 goals inside the first 20 minutes. They do it religiously, right? If Atlanta can manage to smash and grab and find an opening goal, anything is possible, right? This is MLS, and away teams know the blueprint. You did it against Montreal. Granted, it's a different world when you do it against Montreal, but remember, they also only lost the first game exhausted, right? Completely exhausted legs. They lost the first. It was a 1-goal game again, so they were not played off the pitch completely. They were in it until the end. So, look, is it plausible? Absolutely. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it likely? No. I mean, at the end of the day, you have some incredible big game players, but this is the MLS playoffs, man. There's now it's a one game final, right? There's no aggregate score you have to worry about. It's just winner takes all. So absolutely, it's plausible.
It's going to be very interesting. I think that third game, that's a game that I'm really watching because I didn't think Atlanta had it in them to make it that difficult. Andy, Patrice talked about Minnesota, that game between Minnesota and Colorado, 2 games that finished in penalties, the 2 games won by Minnesota with the Dane Sinclair, so important in the facing penalties. And I read a few comments here online, and a lot of people saying Dane Sinclair will maybe be the number 1 for the Canadian men's national team, surpassing Max Crépeau. Do you feel that this is a possibility? Is it a real possibility, knowing that Maxime Crépeau is not and wasn't the starter in a game in the playoffs?
I think moments are very important for players. Playoffs, penalties, the season is on the line. They're very defining for a player for their career. And this is definitely something that he can boast to the national team, saying, I did it when my team season was in the line and I stepped up. I mean, I think he's going to need a lot more moments like these throughout the playoffs. It's not just a one-off, because one-offs do happen. But as Elias said, in the playoffs, anything goes. Anything goes. Whatever we did to get there, to get to the playoffs today, doesn't matter anymore. We are here right now. We can beat Miami. We can beat whatever team is in front of us. We can beat them because we are here now. So, yeah, it's important for him to relish this moments that he's having so that he can really have – they can't tell him no at all.
Of course, no, for sure. Anything can happen, and at the end of the day, performances on the pitch make you the number one, right, Pat? You know that already, right? And when you're good on the pitch, you should expect to have more minutes with the national team, right?
Yeah, but this is going to be interesting because for me, Max Crepeau won everything in Copa America. So now to dislodge the number one goalie would only say Jesse Marsh going into his question bank going, now Crepeau didn't finish the season. He didn't play. Do I want to change and go with Dean Sinclair? But Max Crepeau there was always that questions when we watch even CF Montreal. He's a starter, but he's starting. He keeps playing. The other guy seems to be better. Yes, because the guy put points in the bank for Max Crepeau, performing at Copa America, showing that he took that spot. Now, for Jesse Marsh to give it to Dane Sinclair, I think I go with Andy. He's probably going to monitor like, okay, he's got great playoffs, but he probably watched the season and said, Dane, has he had games like these regularly? So I can say, okay, he deserves the shot to move Max Crepeau from the number one spot. I think it's definitely saying Jesse Marsh is going, this is great because I need my goalies. I need the second goalie to challenge the number one to be at this top game all the time because you don't want it to be easy and the guy just knows, okay, he's number one no matter what. So that is a great question, but I think it's just great the factor that you have two goalies that are doing really well. Even though Maxime Crepeau didn't finish off the season, you know when he plays for the national team, he's boasting a lot of confidence, and that Dane Sinclair can step up. Now the question is, when you're going to go a shootout, maybe you're going to go like, maybe I put in Dane Sinclair for the shootouts because knowing that his performance. But those are just question marks I'm putting out there. Doesn't mean this will happen. But I still think Max Crepeau is number one. But Dane Sinclair did really well, and we'll see in November. But I don't see Dane being put number one just because of these performances, even though they have been very good.
Yeah, Speaking of which, I kind of want to poke the hornet's nest a little bit on the Dane Sinclair. J'entends Sirois and Sébastien Breza in the shootout.
I was going there too.
What was your thoughts, and would you have made the call to make that substitution?
No, I think Jonathan Sirois is confident. I don't know. Like, to be honest, I know Breza did some saves because remember, I think it was the Canadian Championships 2 years ago, if I'm correct, or 3 years ago. Now, in training, is he as confident as he was 2-3 years ago? That plays a role because I think they did mention that they did some shooting practice, penalty kick practice. So if he was that confident, I think that plays, and maybe Courtois had that in his card, but I don't think it was in his card. I think he felt Jonathan Sirois, the way he's playing and the confidence as he's been boasting at the end of the season, was his guy.
No,
everybody can ask that question because Jonathan didn't really put out a save. So it's easy going, Breza could have had a shot. But we haven't seen enough from Breza. He hasn't really played. And when he has played, it's not been to the point convincing enough to say he should come into penalty shootouts. And like I said, I wasn't there at training that day. If you really had done really well in practice, I'm sure Courtois would have said, just in case, we might just change the goalies because every coach wants to win and put himself in the best position to win a game, especially in PKs.
We wanted to get Patrice Bernier to say Breza over Sirois. We did not.
It didn't happen, man. It didn't happen. It didn't happen.
You're not going to hear that from me just for the factor of, yes, Breza in the past made some saves. It's not enough for me to say he should have been in that game, or at least in terms of the PK.
Fair enough.
Especially when Corbo converted on his penalty, right? So that was a good substitution in the end.
Yeah. It was a good substitution. But did he mention, because I felt watching the game that Campbell seemed to struggle at the end with some muscle injuries, and Corbo had to come in. I don't remember Courtois saying, I bought Corbo in for shooting. So, but it ended up being really well because Corbo shot really well and did a great job and finished the season very strong at the center of the defense position.
We'll talk about that a bit later in the postmortem for sure. Let's still stay with the MLS Cup playoffs. There's a couple more questions that I wanted to ask you guys. First of all, Elias, LA Galaxy crushing Colorado 5-0, 4-1. Are they back? Because for people that don't know, LA Galaxy is the team that won the most MLS Cups in MLS history. They haven't been good in the past 10 years or so. They seem to be back with a very good coach, even if we don't like him, in Greg Vanney. Do you feel that that Galaxy team has what it takes to go and lift the trophy again?
They have the form for it, and they have the personnel for it. It's more just this psychological hump, because there's still a lot of core players that were there last year that were either injured or just not playing well, and that psychology of it was going horribly. Nothing was going right last year, and there was a lot of tension in the room, and the vibes were just not good overall. So far, and we saw it from this year with Montreal. If the vibes are good, the past tension doesn't matter. If the play is good and you're getting wins, the tension goes away immediately. So, look, I mean, beating up on a Colorado that doesn't have a Georgi Mihailovic, again, hopefully Georgi Mihailovic.
He was in the second game. He was there.
Injured.
He was there in the second game. Yeah.
You're still injured, and he left injured. But
yeah.
I think that they're back. Yes, 100%. Because
love it.
Even if you miss out on the top spot in the West to your arch rivals, which I know sucks on the last second, they 100% deserve to be among the top teams in MLS, not just the West. Because we look at Columbus, Cincinnati, Miami. We look at, oh my God, the peak of MLS. No, the West has. Watch out for the West.
They have arguments.
Watch out for the West.
Arguments.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. The other team, we talked about the three teams a lot that were the favorites for the MLS Cup. So we talked about LAFC, we talked about Inter Miami, and Columbus. Columbus is out. LAFC played their first game, only won 2-1 against the Whitecaps. They're playing tonight, if I'm not mistaken, again against the Whitecaps. What do you think? Do you think there's a possibility for the Canadian team to really maybe grab a win at BC Place?
Anything goes in the playoffs. Anything goes, and that's just the truth. So Vancouver has proven that when they're at home, they can actually show up and play anybody that comes there. So if you ask me if there's a possibility, I 100% do believe they have possibility. But LA is a very good team with a lot of talent. We've seen this in a lot of different sports where you have a team loaded with, names, big names, but don't necessarily mesh together. That seems to have been the case for LA at times, but we don't know. Maybe they will figure it out for the playoffs. So
yeah. We'll see. As you said, we'll see. I think we have a couple of questions that we got regarding MLS Cup playoffs, Elias, before the pod. So maybe we'll ask one to Pat since he's here. He's our special guest. So we're gonna send you one of the questions that were asked to us. I think it's Dr. Foot, if I'm not mistaken.
We didn't get MLS.
About Miami. Yeah, let's get.
Okay, that's a transfer question.
Yeah, exactly. He's asking, Pat. He's asking, do you believe in Neymar's coming at Miami next year to reform the MSN in Miami? What do you feel? Do you think that's a possibility? Do you feel that that's a good thing for MLS to have Neymar, Messi, and Suarez?
But that's funny because if I'm correct, wasn't it today there was a big rumor that
he bought a house.
Neymar is going back to Santos?
Oh, I didn't read that.
Well,
if I'm correct, there's a saying this morning, if I'm correct, and I was stunned because I looked at it twice, saying that Neymar would be heading back home and playing at his homegrown club, if you could say, Santos. So, look, every player so far that's from Europe is connected to Inter Miami. So they talked about Modric going there. Any player who's a big name is already directed towards Inter Miami, saying that it could be. You never know. Nobody thought Luis Suarez was going to end up there, and he did. So, but if I'm correct, I just saw today that Neymar seems that he's heading next year back to Santos. So I would think that would crush that rumor directly. But you never know until players have signed that on that dotted line. Anything can happen. And the thing is I will be really interested in to see how Inter Miami ends this season. If they don't win, I expect a big move because Suarez is not signed for next year, if I'm correct. They're in discussions.
Yeah.
But if Inter Miami don't win next year, and on paper, it is the last season of Lionel Messi on paper. I think his contract ends before the World Cup 2026, or he has an option for that year. So I would definitely say if they do not win the MLS Cup, because they won the Supporters' Shield, but if they don't win the MLS Cup, definitely somebody's coming to bolster that locker room and that team to make sure that they win it next year. Because Messi mentioned it in a Fabrizio Romano interview that he said, look, this league is much more difficult. Yes, there are certain things. It's not like Europe, but it is a difficult league.
Yeah.
The way the teams are, the process of traveling. So I would not be surprised if Inter Miami does not win the MLS Cup, that some big name pops up for 2025, which makes it interesting for everybody else who has season tickets and who wants to watch Messi and definitely knows another player will be coming to be watched when Inter Miami comes into town, no matter if it's Montreal, Toronto, or anywhere in the MLS. But yeah, Neymar, I think everybody can read it. If you go online, it says that Neymar is heading to Santos. So, but it's not signed. These rumors fly every day, but that was the latest that he could be going back home to Brazil.
I think Patrice says something super interesting. He said, wouldn't be surprised if somebody else bigger comes along to the MLS. Might be right. Who else could be bigger than Lionel Messi coming to MLS?
Oh, bigger than Messi? No, but they're big. Inter Miami went from, I can't say no names, but last place team to now all these players that are there, Diego Gomez, Redondo, Roa, they all went there because Lionel Messi is there. I'm telling you, if Lionel Messi is not in that club, I don't believe those players sign Inter Miami because it's the chance to play with the GOAT. It's debatable. But so anybody bigger, don't know. But there's players out there who have great careers. They're playing in great places. And Marcelo just got kicked out of Fluminense.
Yeah.
I don't see Real Madrid players coming with Barcelona, but you never know.
Not kicked out, right? The contract mutually terminated.
We all know that what happened after the game. He's kicked out. That's just in terms of politically to say for the media and for everybody to adhere to. But yeah, it's not necessarily bigger than Messi, but another big name that's around the game because there's guys who have end of contract, I can't say end of career in Europe that may be lured to go. You know what? It'll be interesting to go to MLS, play with Messi, and go win titles. Look, I forgot his name. That's with the LA Galaxy, Dortmund player. I'm forgetting his name now. Marco Reus. Those guys now, MLS is something like, you know what? I'll go play there, and there's less tension because I could just play and enjoy life. That's mostly the saying that most guys who come to Europe go like, yeah, it's not the same as when in Europe because Europe you lose, you can't go home or you got to stay home while when you play MLS, you can enjoy the game and just enjoy it. And not everybody's Lionel Messi, but Busquets and Alba can go outside in the streets and not be recognized and just enjoy life with their families and just going to training and knowing that the tension of winning is there, but there's no fans harassing you when things are not going so well or even when they're going very well.
Kevin De Bruyne too. Funny. It was very funny because when we had Laurent Courtois on the show a couple of weeks ago, just before we were off, we didn't start the recording yet, and Laurent Courtois was walking downtown, and he's like, "Guys, I'm a bit late." And he answered with his phone. He's like, "Guys, I'm a bit late." And he was just downtown, and nobody around him, nobody knew who he was.
There were people around him.
There were people around him, but nobody really thought that he could be the manager of CF Montreal, and that's someone that has that aura. And it was very, very, very funny because we talked about it a bit later to get together here. So completely agree with you, Pat. There is some sort of privacy when you come and you play for MLS, no matter how big your name is on the football world, in the football world. And I think that's something that a lot of players are looking for when they've had all that pressure throughout their careers. So maybe an Antoine Griezmann will come pretty soon.
You never know.
Hopefully wearing CF Montreal colors, but like, yeah. So moving on. So I think we talked about the MLS Cup playoffs. Of course, we'll follow it here on The Ball is Round throughout the weeks. 100%. We will talk about it. But now let's start our post-mortem of CF Montreal. It's time to talk about everything that happened this year. I'm going to give you the guidelines for the post-mortem because we have some guidelines, so we're going to have to follow it. This season, we're going to rate each individual. So we're going to rate front office, player, or coach by giving them a grade between A and E. So like back at school stuff, like you were back in university or in school.
I didn't know anything lower than C at school, by the way.
Okay. You guys can use, of course, minus and plus. So you can say A minus or B plus. That's a possibility. So we can play with that if you want to. The way we're going to do that, we're going to give each one of us the grade for each one of the people that we're grading without giving an explanation. So we'll copy a bit, kind of see what they do. We are partners, so there's no problem there. And right after, I'll direct a question to one of you guys. And of course, feel free to jump in if you want to discuss and react. It's not a problem at all. We're not stressed by time because here in The Ball is Round, we're always good with time. So let's go. Let's start this right away with Olivier Renard. The reason why I want to start with Olivier Renard is very simple. He's the one with his staff, so Vasily Gurmanzidis too, and the rest of his staff that built that team. Like at the beginning, the foundation of that team, the squad altogether, it was Olivier Renard with his staff. Of course, there are some players that came in not because of him 100%. He didn't have a choice but to accept them. But when you look at the responsibility of squad building, it was Olivier Renard that was the one that had that position to accept or to reject any kind of player joining that team. Now that the season is over, give me the grade for Olivier Renard. I'll start with you, Andy.
Olivier Renard, I would give him, for this season, I would probably give him a B.
B for Andy. Elias. Stuff, huh?
Yeah, because you kind of have to take everything into hindsight. You know, it's all.
I was waiting for all of you guys to go to make a decision.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him a B plus.
Pat?
No, I'll give him a C.
Ooh.
A C. Bon. Okay, so we have a few differences there, and you know what, Pat? I'll ask you the question because you're the one that gave the lower grade. Why are you giving that C? And what are the investments that you're not really happy about? What are the actions that you're not really happy about? Because C is an average note, right? So how did you come up with that grade?
C, because if you look at all the players that were brought in this season, who excelled? Except for Joseph Martinez, and Joseph Martinez took some time until he excelled. That's not necessarily his fault, because I will give him that he took the gamble on a player that most wouldn't have. But the rest, Kokaro did not pan out. Yankov did not pan out. Then you have look at Ron and Lassiter were traded, and for most likely they were brought in a year ago. So even if the club took them out, it's because they're doomed that they weren't people that they saw in the future. So all those are the players that he brought in. So when you look at players who are brought out or don't perform, they fall on his note. Now, there's other players. It's not necessarily him. That's another question. But those are, so for me, this in terms of squad building, it doesn't pan out on this season. Maybe next year, Kokaro scores 10 goals and it's a different story. But on this year, even though they did the investment, those players did not Kokaro started off well, but everything trickled down. So when I look at all the players except for Martinez, who was a gamble and who ends up being really well, and that's more coach and player that needed to sort things out. I don't think the squad was necessarily that great this season, so that's why I give a C.
Interesting. Of course, guys, feel free to jump in and give your grades. Everybody listening, we have Wellington saying B plus. We have Robbie saying B minus. For Olivier Renard, feel free to give your own grades. Andy, Elias, what do you think about?
And I just want to add, he gave a new contract to certain players. Why did they get this new contract when they didn't perform? I think of Sunusi Ibrahim, who got an extension and did not. What did he deserve the extension for? So those are things also that tells me, yes, this was not a great year in terms of the management for Olivier Renard. It's not judging the 5 years it's been here, but this year for me it wasn't great.
Anything you want to add, guys, regarding Olivier Renard, or Pat said it all? Because you had a different grade.
No, Pat made a lot of very good points. The reason I gave him a slightly higher grade, significantly higher grade, was because at the end of the day, the signings he brought in overall did not end up working, right? For a lot of them, right? Matthias Kokaro, Dominic Yankov are the two main ones. Rouen, I think, was more a case of we have the chance to get Jaquil Marshall-Rudy and get some gam back on Rouen. I don't think that was a performance thing because, again, he was probably one of the most consistent players in the first half of the season. But when you look at the beginning of the season, when Yankov and Kokaro were in much better form before their injuries and before the struggle with fitness, they looked like world beaters. And Olivier Renard looked like a genius, right? So I think from a purely on paper perspective, in terms of him doing his job, it worked out well. It's just you can never really be sure how someone adapts to MLS. And international signings are always like Patrick said, they're always a bag of cats. You never really know what you're going to get in terms of just adapting to the league. And Dominic Yankov talked about it, right? When you're in playing in a small European country, even if Champions League traveling is shorter than going to play within your conference. Yeah. So I think that there's an adjustment period. I think next year we'll get a better idea of how good those signings were, because you see the potential in those signings. And obviously they didn't pan out this year in terms of performances and results, but there is that quality there that is undeniable.
No, for sure. Andy, Olivier Renard, yes, as Elias and Patrice said, he brought some international signings that didn't really pan out. But at the same time, there are some players that he kept and that he gave his confidence to and that really performed. We can talk about George Campbell. We can talk about Fernando Alvarez. We can talk about Samuel Piet and so on, because some players really performed. So is it the reason why you gave a B minus? Because some players that he kept made the difference this year.
You know what? To me, like when I knew that we were gonna go over Olivier Renard, I was thinking so much. I was like, can we really give him a grade this year for the signings that he did this year, international or locally, intra-league? Or can we talk about the signings that he did last year, that we saw that 1 or 2 years of development throughout the season, where signings like Fernando Alvarez or Mahalo Poku, that they had that time to develop. So the reason why I gave it a B is because I do think that he found high potential players. Did they pan out? Not today. Not right now. It's very hard to grade it today. But some of the players that he did find in the past did take a little bit of time and actually had found some decent success. So to me, it's very, very hard to grade him right now. I give him a B again just because of past things that he did.
But that's the thing, is the question is this season. If I'm giving Olivier Renard a grade, I'm definitely giving him like an A minus for the time he's been at Montreal, because from what he's brought in. But if you're talking to me about this season, I give C, because you guys mentioned Fernando Alvarez, that's last year. Mamola Opoku is last year.
Yeah.
Now, this season, guys didn't pan out, but also, I'll bring you another step. Kokaro comes in, but the style of play of CF Montreal demands a number 9 who comes in between the lines. That means that player's picked, but his style is crosses inside. He's a box striker. So it may be a good choice player to pick, but does he fit the philosophy or the model that Laurent Courtois wants? And that's why at the end of the season, most people are like, why isn't he playing? Why are they putting Ibrahim? Why are they putting other players? Because the model of play and the characteristics of the player don't necessarily fit in. Now, who brought those players? At the end of the day, that is the sports director. No matter if we're not talking about he doesn't have the budget, he still brings those players, and they don't necessarily fit to what Laurent Courtois is looking for. So you sign the coach, and then you sign players, but do they correlate? And for me this year, I have to give him C. If I'm giving A- for his 5 years, yes, because he had to go. He went above what we expected with a club who changed philosophy of going with young players and selling players, Mihailovic, Kone, Johnson, and so on. But for this season, for me, it's C because, like I said, I'm adding on. Sunusi Ibrahim got a new contract.
For what?
Mathieu Choyer couldn't get a new contract, but we give a contract to somebody who can't say he did not perform, but did not show enough to say he deserved a new contract. So it shows to say that this year there's things that didn't go as well, and they changed things during the year that turned it around in the last month. We're not going to lie. It's not the last half of the season. It's the last month that changed the perspective that we have on this team. So, yes, I got to give Olivier Renard a C for this year.
Okay, Patrice, I'll lower my grade to a C.
No.
You
Keep
got
your grade.
You got
I'm
me
just
there.
solidifying my reasoning of why I'm giving
Yeah,
it.
Of course. And you know what?
Because I know people are going, it's Olivier Renard. He gets a B. He gets a pass for what he has done. But we're talking about 2024.
Yeah, but at the same time, Pat, he didn't trade or he didn't get rid of the players that he brought the previous years, right? So we have to give him credit about that for that.
Yeah, but
too.
who do you want? He cannot get rid of Samuel Piet. He can't.
No, but he can't get rid of Fernando Alvarez. Last year, he didn't play that much. Fernando Alvarez.
But Fernando Alvarez is an investment.
He was a lot better. Exactly.
Fernando Alvarez is an investment. George Campbell, and as I said, their investment from last year. I expect them to adapt at one point. But if
they panned out this year.
The players who did not perform this year, who were brought this year, a lot of them did not. And Joseph Martinez panned out at the end, which was a gamble. And I'm happy they took that gamble because as a player, personally, I would have brought in because his pedigree, his characteristics, he's a number 9. He's a star in this league. But count how many of those players really did well this season. Not the ones we're hoping perform well this season. Campbell did well this season, but he's been here for 2 years. So we expect him, young player, develop. Fernando Alvarez, I expect him next year to make a step up next year. Maybe Corbo, who brought in, who signed a long-term deal and not on loan, was probably a player that did better than or should have played more time. But that's another story between him and Laurent Courtois, the choices. But like I said, I know we all want to defend Olivier Renard because what he's done.
I'm looking at the squad. I'm looking at the squad as a whole, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I see everything. And for me, even if it was a past investment, you could have got rid of him.
I don't think they could have gotten rid.
This year.
They could have gotten rid of Fernando Alvarez. The guys they could have gotten rid is Lassie, Mason Toy, which weren't paying out for the last years, and you've given them good contracts 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Yeah,
but now we're talking about this year. I'm not even bringing that up to the grade.
But in that
interesting. I like this discussion. I like it.
But in that case, every postmortem, if we were to grade Olivier Renard every year, which I'm sure you guys did every year he gets a C because it didn't pan out that year. I don't think.
I'm sorry. Certain things panned out last year. 04, you didn't expect 04 to be as good as he was. He did. 2022.
Oh, don't say that to Nilton.
Yes, because the problem is when we look at 04, we look at aesthetically. Is he the type of player we enjoy? No. But for what he was able to bring in his shortcomings, he still panned out. I think he just wasn't used well by Losada, or he lost confidence in him early on. But that's 2023. 2022, it's an A plus. 2021, it's probably an A minus because Fernando Torres comes in. A bunch of these guys are signing. Mason Toy plays really well. All that stuff. 2024, if you look at it, the squad needed. Why did they say we need to keep players who want to be here? Meaning some players were brought in, and maybe Olivier Renard leaving changes the aspects of certain players because they were brought in by the sports director, not necessarily the coach. So this year for me, it's a C. That's for me. You guys have your reasoning.
You're making, as Wellington said, you're making strong arguments, and we love that. And the point of a podcast is just to exchange.
Right? Oh yeah, but
I
you
love
give
it.
your points.
I love
Everybody
it.
gives
Exactly.
I want to go on, man. Let's just get started.
Moving on to the next person, and that's Laurent Courtois. Guys, Laurent Courtois' grade. Elias, you're the one that's going to give the first grade. So tell me, how much do you grade Laurent Courtois?
I'm going to give him a B.
B. Pat?
B.
Oh, directly to me because you're expecting a
no, well, like
B minus.
I changed things. Okay,
B minus.
B minus. Andy?
For his first year, I'm gonna give him a C.
A C.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go with the C once again. So Andy, do you think it's a C? And I want to hear your arguments regarding that grade, but also at the same time, do you feel he's on the right track?
100%. That's why it's so much harder. It's so hard to grade Olivier Renard, and it is so hard to grade Laurent Courtois because Laurent Courtois was placed in such a weird and strange position from the moment starting the month of May. I don't think at the beginning everything seemed to be well in order. It seemed from the fans' perspective, everything seemed to be in place, right? But once things started to unravel, that's when we also saw different Laurent Courtois with the people, and in the games too, he seemed to make a lot of visible mistakes as far as the subs and the decisions he made tactically that just didn't make much sense when the team was down by a lot of scores or they were tired legs. So I give it a C. Yes, I'm being kind of harsh, but it is his first year. But I do think sometimes there were some very evident mistakes that he made that it just felt like it took a little bit longer for him to learn. Also, another reason why I want to say, I should have said C plus. I'm so sorry, but one of the things that I really, really liked that he did was how he handled the Joseph Martinez situation. Supposedly from the outside, what they're saying, right?
How he bounced back.
Because somebody in this podcast said that Joseph Martinez was never playing again.
Yeah, I said it. Yeah, I said it. Yeah.
And I told you at that time, Hadi, I told you guys, I was like, this is the moment where we're going to find out who Laurent Courtois is as a coach. This is the moment. Is he the guy that gives you a second chance? Is he the one that, you go in the doghouse and I never talk to you again, don't ever even think about it, let the administration take care of you? Or is he the kind of person that's like, let's sit down and talk? Maybe we're both in the wrong. So I think it was a long year for him, a long year for us as fans to watch him learn, but I definitely do think he's in the right track. I'm
Interesting. Interesting. We do have Wellington saying C for Laurent Courtois. Robbie saying B minus. Elias, Laurent Courtois has been learning this year, and it was clear that he has been learning. He made a lot of mistakes, but he adjusted them as during the course of the season, and his way of, I think he developed very, very quickly. It's very rare to see a coach develop as fast within one season. Do you agree with that statement, or do you feel that I'm just wearing pink glasses?
No, I don't think it's. I don't think it was out of the ordinary. I think it was, this is what good coaches do, right? And I think it was immediately obvious that he knows his shit. He knows what he's talking about. He knows football. He knows tactics. So from that perspective, in terms of setting your team up and having the right ideas in place, that was never in doubt for me. The most important thing that I want to see, and the reason I gave him a B, is how do you grow with this team? because not only is he a rookie coach that is going to be developing throughout not just season but also next season, but this is also still a very young squad. Even the players they brought in, except for Juan, are all under 26 years old, right, at the beginning of the season. And the expectation is they're also going to be growing. And so you got to see this kind of parcours. And everyone says, you're only so good as how you act when you get your first speed bump. And he got a hell of a speed bump. He got a Mount Everest of speed bumps. So you look at that midseason with the injuries and the locker room not being great. And the 101 things that we talked about over the course of the season, the middle of the season, there those 2 months that were just terrible. Can you weather that storm? Can you get everybody back on board? And more importantly, can getting everybody back on board translate to results on the field? And the answer to all three of those questions is yes. And that's why he gets a B for me, because not only did he manage to A, keep his job, and B, keep the locker room from completely imploding, but then he managed to do a complete 180, and now the vibes are the best they've been since 2022.
I agree 100% with that, with those arguments. Pat, I want to ask you just one more question regarding Laurent Courtois. We talked about his mistakes and the few mistakes that he did this year. Okay, and with your wealth of experience within the football world, some mistakes, it's okay to make them, but usually it's not okay to make them twice. So let's talk about those mistakes, the handling of the Joseph Martinez altercation, the fact that communication-wise, he went and he said what he said. That's something that happened. He was able to handle it right after and gave Joseph Martinez a chance to get back into the team. But do you agree with me when I say that this should not happen again? This was a big mistake because you never know what's going to happen. And if it happens again and you do the exact same thing, you're going to start to lose the confidence and the respect of other people, because whenever you say something, people are not going to believe you anymore. Am I being too dramatic, or do you agree with me, Pat?
No, I think in terms of the team, he was very severe, very strict. Kokaro, other players, because of lateness, tardiness, or whatever rules that the guys broke. So he was very consequential in terms you're not playing the next game, or you're not playing the game you were supposed to be part of. Joseph Martinez thing, I think, he turned it around better. I think he got accustomed to coaching players of that magnitude, or if you could say those types of personalities. So that's where, if I go with Joseph Martinez this year, at the end of the year, I think with the veteran players, even Raheem Edwards, because people forget for a small portion of time, Raheem Edwards was like playing, not in the lineup. And then at the end of the last games, Edwards is playing all the time, Martinez is playing all the time. We already knew Piet was going to play Waterman. So the veteran players, he got them back in the mold, and that's how you maintain your team, because the young players, they can only bring you, they have so many highs and lows. It's the veteran players. So he's better dealing with these players at the end, I think, helped him out. But that's why I give him B-, because like Elias said, and Andy, everything that happened this year, sport director that brought you in, he's gone. Now that's a lot of doubt for the coach. Like, is the next guy coming in going to keep me around? And then having to deal with guys like Victor Wanyama. He's on contract. You know what you're probably going to do with him, but you don't know exactly how you're going to dance with that. And then Joseph Martinez, it was going well. Then he comes back, doesn't go so well, goes public, where I think he learned I should not have said that publicly. Maybe say that to his face, but I don't say that publicly, so it becomes much more. That I will tell him that he adjusted quickly and found the word that we all think gave his stability, because he had a starting 11 that he regularly started, and then results came. Would they have had results for 15, 20 games? We don't know, but at least they were consistent in terms of their performance and getting points. So that's why I give B-, because he found the solution and he dealt with certain cases better, which is saying, I don't know if Joseph Martinez is going to stay, but I think they will be on better terms now. Okay, now I know who you are and you know how I operate. Now, how can we work better? I am not saying that if Martinez were to stay, that it wouldn't happen, because from what I know from Joseph Martinez, it has happened in Atlanta quite a few times with other
Yeah.
coaches.
And
But
as
he
Robbie
dealt it well.
said, let's remember Joseph Martinez is a bit of a prima donna. So
Yeah, but
exactly.
the thing is, all the players that are like that, especially the number 9s, you have to deal with their personalities. Kai Kamara is like that. Joseph Martinez is like that. I'm sure Didier Drogba. Those guys want to score. They're accustomed to making the team win. They have personalities. They have where you, if you saw, I'm going to say the words because Courtois said 2 things. He threw him under the bus in June, July, and then he says he has a contagious energy that the team has. So it tells you when those guys, you tap them on the back and you have them on your side, they bring your team here. But if you don't, they can bring your team in the other direction. Those are the types of personalities that you have in the locker room that can turn it around, and that can be very difficult. But that's good management. It's not being good with the X and O's. It's good with the human people and getting the best out of them, which he turned out to do very well at the end of the year.
I have a question for you, Pat, because it's very interesting. You talked about the strikers needing confidence, being they need to score. They're a bit of a prima donnas, a bit difficult to manage sometimes because that's the number 9s. At the same time, we all know that the goalkeepers are usually in a space of their own. A lot of players say, you know what, goalkeepers are weird. That's what, people say in the sporting world. What do we say about midfielders, Pat? You should know better.
Midfielders is not this. I can't say every player needs the pat on the back.
Yeah, for sure.
Why does Bryce Duke suddenly play really well when the beginning of the year we're all like, Bryce Duke is not a good choice so far. He's not paying out, and at the end of the year, he finds Caden Clark. He gets a few assists, and he looks much better than he did at the beginning of the year. Yeah. All the players need a pat on the back. Some players have personalities that you need to cater to more than others. All coaches, the greatest thing is from a coach is all players are treated the same, but they're not treated the same. It's the reality. You are a professional, but when you're 20 and you're 32, 33, coach can't treat you the same.
No,
you have experience, baggage that you have to take into account and saying, this guy has done things and let me see how we can pan out. 20-year-olds, you have to find out, you have to win the coaches. I'll give you an example, okay? And I'll say it quite out loud because I know very well Rida Zouir, and I love Rida Zouir. But in his mind, he owes the same shot at a guy who's 30. But the guy who's 30 has 10 years of a contract of experience, and people are going to say everybody needs the same shot. No, it's not the reality. Life is not like that. Football coaching is not like that. Some people have a little bit more leash. Others have a little bit. And you have to gain that extra leash by showing that you are there all the time until they have no choice to put you on the field. And that's the reality is center midfielders, yes. Nathan Saliba, he wasn't great at the beginning of the year, but he's a young player that they believe in, and he's done it, and he's showing signs. I can tell you, he would have started the season had he not been injured in the preseason.
Yeah,
so it tells you that he had a pretty good preseason, but he got injured, it knocked things down, and then Pierre Choignard started doing really well, and he had to find his spot. And at the end of the year, he ends up being the player we know. He's a young player, and he has the personality to go above and not go so down. So every player needs to be catered to, but it's just different. And guys who have experience usually get a little bit more leash. And that's where I think Laurent Courtois, as I mentioned in other places, when you're an MLS Next Pro coach, you're working with 18 to 22 years old. They all want to sign MLS contract. It's not that they're not pros. They know I got to listen to you. I got to perform because I want that contract. When you're 30 years old and you've played in this league, you could say, I don't care who you are, coach. I know what I can do. And if you don't realize that, then maybe I'm not your guy. And then now what do you do? How do you turn that player around and get him? That's why kudos. End of the year, you didn't lose Martinez for the rest of the year. You managed to find a way to keep him in check, and that he could give something to the team, which he did tremendously at the end of the season.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree with what you said, Pat. I think that he did very well adapting to situations, even after mistakes, and I think that's why he deserves, those grades that are a bit higher than when you look at the team performance at the end of the year. Being eliminated in the play-in, but you get that extra grade just because he learned so much, he reacted the right way, and that's, I think, what gives him a better grade than anticipated, for sure. Moving on, we'll talk about Gabriel Gervais. Okay, so it's going to be a bit tricky to talk about Gabriel Gervais because we need to talk about him as a president, but also we need to talk his decisions as a president, the commercial decisions, but also the sporting side, not getting along with Olivier Renard, to say it that way, and at the end taking the role of sporting director, and then we need to also grade him as a sporting director. So one grade, but so many different roles to grade him. So we'll start with you, Elias. What's your grade for Gabriel Gervais? I sent the program since this morning, so you should have your grade.
And I've been thinking about it since this morning.
Same.
I'm joking.
You know what? I'm going to give him an A-.
Ooh, okay. I'm super surprised. Andy?
C.
A C. Okay. Wow. Okay. So much difference. Pat?
But look, the thing is, I hope he's not watching, because definitely having been close with him since we're very young. So I would say probably a B-, because if you're putting the president role, then it makes the grade much higher. So
Interesting. I'll start with you, Elias. Is he the man for the job? We all know that since Joey Saputo stepped back a bit and gave, the responsibilities at first to Kevin Gilmore, now to Gabriel Gervais, do you want a Gabriel Gervais to be in that position for years to come, for as long as he wants, for 5-10 years? Is he the man with the project? Is he the man that you want to put your club to and give the club to?
Yeah, I think that as president, we're talking about not the sport, we're talking about the president's side. I think he's done a pretty good job. I know that there's been butting heads here and there, and namely when Olivier Renard talked about it after he left. That's definitely something to think about. But when you look at it, Messi effect or not, this is the best attendance the club has ever gotten consistently during the season. This is the highest season ticket total they've gotten during the season. And yeah, not every game was sold out, but let's be real here, not every game was full. But the thing is,
tickets were sold, right? So.
Exactly, but we've all been to the majority, if not all, the home games the last couple years. Even if they weren't all full, this is the most consistently full I've seen Stade Saputo since COVID.
Agree.
At least since COVID. And that's including 2022 when they were world beaters. So that is something to speak for. Now, when you look at the sporting side and you look at the way that he managed after the fallout of Olivier Renard's departure, you look at the window where he presided over. There's a reason that those 4 players, granted maybe 2 starters and 2 rotation players, but there's a reason that 2 of those players were so instrumental in that last month of the last month and a half of it going so well, especially Caden Clark. But that is why I'm giving him an A, is because if we're gonna treat Olivier Renard based on this season alone and purely this season, we have to hold Gabriel Gervais the same standard. And based purely on this season and the stuff he did this year, it's arguably his best year with the club. I think from him personally, I think it's the best year with the club, and everything he's done this year so far has gone well.
You know what? I completely agree with your assessment. I feel that, when you're looking at the results and all the decisions that he made, everything panned out. Everything. Like, we can talk about player acquisitions. We can talk about season tickets being sold. We can talk about all the partnerships that started this year, the commercial partnerships. Even the fan experience has been really good this year. When you look at before the game, after the game, it's been very interesting all the time. So at the end of the day, we all know, there were a bit of unfortunately chatter about him not getting along with Olivier and taking decisions and stuff like that. And we all love the way Olivier Renard worked. And as Pat said a bit earlier, he would have given him an A- on 5 years. But at the same time, the decision as of today, the 3rd of November 2024, the decision that Gabriel Gervais took was good to get rid of Olivier Renard, looking at how things are right now. So it's very hard to blame anything on Gabriel Gervais right now. But do you agree? Is there something where you would have liked him to be better at this year in 2024?
Look, in terms of president, I think I won't even say the messy years. It's just look at the partners. Look at the names of the partners. I do not remember when I was a player. There was always been BMO. There was Videotron at one point. There was big ones, few of them. Now they have Air Transat, Poulet Rouge, and so on and so on. It just keeps Bombardier. It just keeps connecting. So meaning that Quebec Inc., that we were all, they don't really like soccer, seems to be connecting to soccer. So that on that aspect, A or even A+, because his number one job, he's doing. The second job is, let's say you've been gifted to it because now you're taken away and you can't really sign a sports director, at least for right now. And when I mean sign, because, things change quickly. But yeah, they took decisions and they realized quickly this locker room, or don't forget the players that they got rid of. It's not necessarily that they weren't good players. Is do they fit to the model that we want to have per position and the way we want to play? So now the decision is to let go of Juan. Like Elias said, it's true. He was one of the better performers. But you're looking at it long-term wise, the way we want to play, is he a type of player that we want to keep long-term? So these decisions for me were where you go, okay, we maybe question them because at the end of the season pans out. Caden Clark does really well, and then boom, it changes everything. And then it's a player that we needed offensively, because the offensive output, I think for me, is the biggest question mark that led to all these goals, because the attack didn't produce until the end of the year. So sports director-wise, I think he's learning on the job because it's a new job. It's not a new reality. He's learning everything that's that. Good thing he got Corey Ray. That's somebody that's in the league, knows a lot of people, can connect us on that aspect. I can't give him an A+ because then you would say it would have been earlier that the team would have panned out results and then maybe finish better than 8th. I saw them finish 10th, so they finished in the bracket where I think we saw them as a team. So, but good season in terms of what he was able to turn around, and the way I think he envisions the club to do things, which is not just picking out players, it's making sure that the players that we pick suit the way we want to play. And it's not just the available player on the market. Is this player, his guidelines, they always say it, data, the characteristics, the numbers fit to what you're looking for. And when you look, Caden Clark, pretty good. Jaquil Marshall, really, okay, young player, pan out. Even Stuart Pierce. I'm going to say Stuart Pierce.
That's
an old-time player.
Stuart Pierce, oh, wow.
But Tom Pierce, he did, you could see what he brings. He has an offensive output. And people may say he doesn't defend, but look, let's be honest, left wing backs, they have to be forward-thinking players before they even defend. So when you look at certain of those pieces, they're all pretty decent and good signings. So that's where I go B, because A, I would have said, man, everything they would have made, that team would have gone, boom, started winning, had 7 or 8 wins in a trot, and then finished even higher. I would have given you an A and said, because boom, you would have shown that, yes, whatever done in the past was not good. Whatever I done great. That's why I give B, because it was good work, and hopefully it becomes great work in 2025. Knowing what they will do it would be interesting if we do this in December, because if they do sign players in the next 3-4 weeks, does that change their perspective? So I give them a B.
Okay,
No, I give
Patrice,
them
I guess you'll be back in December then, Patrice, then to talk about this. Since
I don't know, but definitely when we're looking at it, there's 2 or 3 additions that need to be brought into this team, and maybe they'll be young players, but definitely we're. This is the first time in a long time that at the end of the year we are like, I would say hopeful. Okay, coach is still there. Great, that's already great.
That's the big win. That's the big
after
win.
that is like, okay,
The bar is so low.
This team is probably better than this team is probably better than what we saw them most of the season. And now, if they add on 2-3 players, maybe they're a 5th or 6th place position team in the MLS in the East next season.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see it, to see the project grow with one, coach returning. It's been a while that we haven't.
Yeah, and his
that.
output, his input to the players, future players to be brought in. Now he'll have more input because he came in and the players were already signed. Now he may say, yes, I want this guy, or I like this type of guy. So.
And he even said, he's going to have a full preseason, like a full offseason to prepare for preseason, which he didn't have before, which is this very, very interesting. And he said it on our podcast here. He said it to Courtois, saying, this time I have time to really prepare for the preseason, to see exactly, to be part of the project altogether since the start of the project, which is very interesting. Andy, you're the third one that I ask a question to. We're going to link the question of Tate Brooks, if you can, Elias, that we received even before the show. Can you include Corey Ray in your ratings? At the same time, I'll ask you, Gabriel Gervais, when he was asked about Corey Ray and his input for Caden Clark and JMR, in a way, Gabriel Gervais diminished the role of Corey Ray in those transactions. He said quite a few times they were already followed and they were already scouted before Corey Ray came in. Now, Corey helped us get them, but at the same time, they were on our radar already. And he also talked quite a few times about the fact that it's a team that does that. Without naming any other people, we all know, and we heard all the chatter about Lucas Saputo being in that team and other individuals. Do you feel that Gabriel Gervais, in a way, first of all, should he keep Corey Ray as a consultant? Should he give him more responsibilities? And at the same time, do you feel that it's okay for Gabriel Gervais to be that the person that has that hat of sporting director when he comes and answer the media whenever there is a transaction? Do you feel that it's okay for him to wear that extra hat, Andy?
You've asked a few questions. I'm going to ask the answer to one of the last one of should Gabriel Gervais be wearing that hat? And I'll tell you what, no, he shouldn't. And I'm not saying because he's bad at it. I'm just saying because in his first press conference that he came out, he said, I don't want to do this. He said, I'm trying to find somebody that will do this. That's what I'm here for. I'm trying to build a team. I'm trying to build an organization. Kind of an infrastructure of how this should work. I want to, je veux prendre un pas en recul. I want to take a step back and really look at the whole thing and see where it's going. So no, I do not think he wants to do that. Corey Ray, I think he brings he's the kind of, based on the research I've done, he seems to be the kind of guy that's always kind of worked in the shadows, similar to Vasily Kremazidis, and has always just kind of been waiting for his shot, just waiting for his shot. And the way Gabriel Gervais has been talking about Corey Ray has been his role right now, at least when he joined the organization, has been, it's an agreement that fits both the organization and Corey Ray. We have no clue what that means, right? Maybe Corey Ray doesn't like making decisions. He just says like, oh, you need an agent? Here's an agent. Maybe that's all he wants to do. We don't know. But yeah, I mean, if the signings of JMR and all that, which, as you said, had started before, and I guess maybe he was the final nail in the coffin for the deal. then yeah, it will be interesting. But again, I think I answered your questions. But
Yeah,
yes,
you
I
did.
do think we should give Corey Ray a decent decision, decent chance. Sorry for this to make those kind of decisions and answer to the fans why the decisions were made and blah 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 blah. And no, I don't believe Gervais is wants to be in that position.
Perfect. Let's add the two questions that we received before the show. Simple guy with the sporting director asking question, will there be a sporting director named before Christmas? And if not, prediction of when he will be named. Who wants to jump in and answer Simple Guy first? Do you guys think it's going to happen right now, or will Gabriel Gervais wait?
Didn't Gabriel Gervais say in one of his press conferences that everything should be said by the end of the year? That's what I think he said in one of his press conferences. So I wanna give him the benefit of that. That yeah, I do think it's gonna be said by the end of the year.
I don't think they're bringing anyone new in. I think it's going to be someone in house that's going to get that role. So I think that's why they're in no rush to promote someone, because the same team is going to be working on the off season regardless. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens before Christmas either.
Pat, you have a scoop for us?
No,
No, you don't have a scoop
I
for
don't.
us.
Personally, look, a lot of people ask me, will there be a sporting director? That title, I don't think so.
Oh,
Maybe people in doing the job and not necessarily having the title. It can work. It's in so maybe they are found person, but maybe Corey, connects certain checks certain boxes, and then the decision always decision always stands with the president or whoever takes the decision at the end of the day. But you're presenting how you want to go into the future, and then maybe that leads you to find a sports director that suits the way you want to. Because I think Andy mentioned it. The thing I've come out from Gabriel Gervais says, I want to put things in infrastructure. He even said it, the academy.
Yeah.
So that means we're trying to put building blocks so that everything connects. And so the structure that we maybe counted on one person or two people, and when they leave, then there's like a big hole that we need to fill, that it doesn't happen. So that if the sports director leaves, the club still functions properly, and then you just find somebody who suits your needs. So maybe there'll be a sport director. I just think they're put the different hats in different positions and structure the club so that everything runs smoothly, and that there is tiers that maybe weren't there in the past. Even though people have done a great job, Vasily and Olivier Renard did a great job, but once they leave, what happens? What are the profile of players? Olivier Renard was the one choosing the players, but that means did we have a list of 10 players and then we chose number one or number two or number three, or it chose the players that he liked? Now it's putting a structure to that they're kind of answering, saying that we were looking at Jacques Marshall-Rudy. They're on the list. That doesn't mean they were number one. I think Corey probably helped get Jacques Rochon because he was in Toronto. He maybe has ties with these people, or Minnesota, he has ties. So I don't see right now sporting director being named. But like I said, I have no clue. I'm just giving my own personal opinion.
yeah, for sure.
Does it really matter though, Harry, to you? Does it matter to have a sporting director?
No,
players are coming in or
for me
coming
it
out.
does.
There's a lot of things that we assume that we need. There's clubs who function that there's a CFO, chief, so no CSO,
Financial.
chief soccer operator. Okay, every club has one now. Every club has a structure. Atlanta, who's the sporting director right now? They got rid of Barcanegra, but everybody knows that Garrett Legaway is the one leading, and he's the president. So it just means that you need a structure. Now you need somebody who fits those responsibilities and takes those decisions, or goes in the meetings that you need to have in MLS. And so that's why I say maybe there won't be a sporting director. Maybe it's somebody with another title. Maybe Corey will be there, but he'll have a title.
But you need someone that takes a decision, that takes accountability for those decisions, not a group. That's what I'm saying. Not maybe a sporting director, but someone that's going to take accountability. Because right now there's nobody that's accountable. There's just a president So whenever, there's a bad trade or whatever, we don't know who to direct it to. We don't know who to give praise to if it's a good trade, and we don't know who to give, a beating to if it's a
But I mean, it's so weird
wrong
because
one, right? So
yeah, it's really weird because in the press conferences, like Gabriel Gervais, you can't say congratulations to him
no,
because he's saying, I'm not the one. There's a team making a decision, but
No.
Corey Ray, he's not the one making the decisions.
So
But
who's
then,
the chief of that team?
so
That's
who do we
what I want to know.
congratulate, or who do we
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I feel it's important to have someone that's accountable for those changes. But to each their own. At the end of the day, everybody has their own.
You do need somebody who's on the sporting side, the technical side, that talks about the vision.
Yeah.
Because the president is there, talks about the club, the institution, and where you want to go as a club. But then which Olivier Renard fitted and did well. It was clear everybody identified to, oh, this is how we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Okay, I believe in what he says, and then we'll see if his work goes with his words. So yes, I agree. Somebody needs to be, but that doesn't mean that the sporting director role needs to be title. It's just this is the person heading the technical director.
Exactly. It
could be a technical director without being a sports director. So.
Exactly. We got the question from Patrick White. Maybe more of a technical director might come in. I'm not sure the difference between the two. It's very weird because, correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, but like the definition of a technical director versus sporting director changes from one region to another.
No, but it's not the same. I'll tell you because I was in the process with San Diego. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The role was technical director because they have a sport division, and maybe the sporting division is Bologna and CF Montreal, and San Diego. They have Right to Dream. They have FC Nochalan. They have Egypt. Somebody heads the sporting vision. Director is you're there to execute for that club. So the methodology is there, and you're there to execute. Maybe sometimes easier because there's let's say Red Bulls. The sports director is not the sports director of Red Bulls New York. He's the sports director of Red Bulls, all the teams, and then they have technical directors at each club who run the show, execute what they want, and then they have meetings of what do we need, where we're heading, and how we want to do things. So that's where I say sports director, vision, long vision club. Technical director, there to execute what you need technically to be done. Talking with the coaches, scouting, and everything, but not necessarily the one guiding the vision of where it's going to look like in 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years. So those are the nuances between the position.
So if I'm understanding correctly, guys, okay, now with Patrice's wonderful explanation, Lucas Aputo is the guy that's doing Bologna and CF Montreal, the vision, right? The sporting director of the vision of both clubs. And then there would be a technical director focused solely on CF Montreal, and Bologna has its own.
But who's Bologna? Marco Di Vaio. What does he do?
He's a technical director.
Exactly. He's in Bologna. But before, actually, how did Olivier Renard come to Montreal? There was a sports director of Bologna.
That was Walter.
And he, I forgot his name, and he guided so that Olivier
Walter Sabatini, Walter Sabatini, right?
And Olivier Renard came in, and then, of course, things changed. And then now, of course, there's always like coach, technical director. You want a little bit more power, influence. And then you say, this is what my title is because now I do this and I have responsibilities. But I mean, it could be that Bologna, there's one person who heads a bit everything that needs to be done. And then there's a technical director on one side and technical director on the other side who execute what we need to be done at each club and each responsibility that these clubs have according to their markets and the culture in which they operate in.
Very interesting. Thanks a lot, Pat, for clarifying the whole situation. Guys, we talked about front office. I think it's time to move to players. Of course, we took a lot of time with front office, which is normal because it's a bigger part of this. With players, we're going to be a bit faster for sure. So let's talk about goalkeepers and defenders. We'll start, first of all, with Jonathan Sirois. We'll do the same exercise with a grade first for each one of you guys, and then a question asked, and we'll go from there. So Jonathan Sirois, guys, what's your grade for the season? Patrice Bernier, you are the first one to grade this time.
B-.
Andy Coronado.
I'll go the same B minus.
Elias
This is
Grigoriadis.
the first one where everyone is in agreement. B minus.
B minus. Okay, I like
Yeah.
it. So, guys, my question is, are we tougher on Jonathan Sirois than any other goalkeepers we had in the past? And I'm going to ask it to Pat because Pat was part of the team since joining the MLS, and we're talking about just the MLS era, just to be specific. But do you feel we're tougher on Jonathan Sirois than on other goalkeepers? We had, Troy Perkins, we had Donovan Ricketts, we had Evan Bush, and there's a feeling that there's a lot of pressure on this young kid. Do you agree with that assessment, Pat?
I think all the goalies always have more pressure. If people forget that Evan Bush, nobody was really so bought into Evan Bush until he made saves in Champions League, and then was consistent throughout the years. Troy Perkins, same thing. I think Jonathan Sirois suffers from two things. One, he had a great first season. And when he's a young player and you have a great first season, what do you expect? Greater season than the second year. And usually it doesn't always pan out that way. And two, he's a local kid. And when you're local players, I'm sorry, but the market always wants more out of you. And they always look at you as you either the hero or you're really, he shouldn't be there. He's really in goals because he's from the academy and such and such. If he was another goalkeeper, a young goalkeeper, we would be saying I didn't think he had a bad year. When people were making mistakes, yes, the goal in Chicago, okay, but it's freaking win. All of us could have taken that goal. Has he made great saves like he did last season? No. But was his team as great or the better defensively than last season? No, they were not that good. So I think, we were just tougher because, for one, it's his second year after a great first year. And two, because he's a local kid and you're a lot tougher on Nathan Saliba, on Samuel Piet, on all the guys who are from here. When they don't perform as well, there's always the second guessing.
Yeah, it's weird, that second guess, Elias. Talking about local players. I have a hard time understanding that, because for me, a local player, you need, I have a feeling of closeness, an automatic feeling of closeness with local players, and I don't understand how it can be harsher on local players than on the rest of the players, because they're people that I'm born we're born in the same city. We have the same values, and I just don't understand that. How can you explain that, Elias?
I think it's because, especially when you take a look at Nathan Saliba, you take a look at Jonathan Sirois, who are the two right now who are the foremost homegrown players in the club. I think it's because of the fact that they are at the level where you can have these expectations, right? If there was a homegrown player that was doing bang average and that is their ceiling and they're just going to be bang average and it's just middle of the road, then you go, okay, you were middle of the road. Keep growing and it's fine. Yeah. But when you have these players that are in contention for national team call-ups and in contention for national team, if you look at Nathan Saliba, who's in contention for maybe, in a couple of years being a national team starter, then you are allowed to have higher expectations. And I think that's a good thing, because you're not complacent with your homegrown players. Your homegrown players are so promising that you are actually actively upset when they're not delivering on their promise, because it's there. We've seen it, right? Jonathan Sirois, who granted was not all world like he was last year, still showed elements of progression. We kept on talking this year about how he needs to get better with his feet.
Yeah.
Overall,
you guys were very harsh on him with his distribution.
But that's the thing, right? Because overall, I don't think he's gotten better with the ball at his feet. But the thing is, the reason that we have these high expectations of him is because we know how good he can be, and we know what's needed of him. And I'm sure that he knows what's needed of him as well. And it's something that, he's someone who has a great work ethic and was clearly very driven. The second he came into the club, he was tunnel vision on, I'm not here to get, a couple minutes, and no, I'm here to be a starter.
Yeah.
And someone who has tunnel vision and is this ambitious, He's not going to be like, well, you know what? I'm good enough to be a consistent MLS. No. I want to be a national team starter. I want to be looked at from all over as the best in the league. And so that's why we have these expectations. Same thing goes for Nathan Saliba. He actively rejected a loan option. He bet on himself. And he said, no, I'm going to earn my starting spot here. And he did. Right? So both these guys bet on themselves and continue to grow while actually delivering on their promises. So in my eyes, they are inviting this criticism. And if anything, they're reveling in it and they're thriving in this because they put this pressure on themselves and they're turning it into diamonds.
I like that. I like that last
Good
sentence.
turnaround,
Turning it-
Elias. Yes,
Ah.
with good wording. Good wording.
Andy,
Oh God.
a lot of people are saying that in order to be successful in the league, you need a very good starting goalkeeper. Do you feel that Jonathan Sirois could be that very successful and very good and reliable goalkeeper going forward?
Yes, if he improves his distribution.
But you feel that he is going to improve? Like you
I
should,
1,000% think he. I mean,
Okay.
already this year he was playing a completely different position than last year. Which, as Patrice said, he had an excellent season, and we saw some messy. I remember when we were like obsessing in the preseason about Laurent Courtois and watching them, like the little clips that they would show of the preseason games against, I don't know who, FIU, all these teams. And Jonathan Sirois just gave out a silly pass to a forward, and we saw it in a clip. It was a very bad giveaway. But when MLS started, we still saw some mistakes and some bad passes.
Yeah.
But as it progressed, just him being in the net, being confident, we started seeing it. The distribution was still messy, but 100%. He's so young. He's 22, I believe.
23.
22, 23,
20,
whatever it is.
23.
He is so young in goalie in goalie terms. Like,
He's still got
I'm
like 10, 15 years. Yeah.
yeah, and just going off what Elias was saying, Patrice, I'm sure you felt this in some way playing in Montreal. Like you have your family members, your friends in the stands, and all that. We've seen it so many times that players in the highest of leagues and in the lowest of leagues, whenever they have those people present there watching them play, it's either the best of moments or the worst of moments where they can perform really well or not really well. We saw with Kaden Clark in Minnesota. Not necessarily his fault. There were different things, right? So that could happen. But a lot of people feel that they crumble under that pressure of family members being there, because family members and friends expect you to play at a much higher level because you're one of them, right? So, Patrice, you having played in Montreal, did you ever feel that different when say you played elsewhere as opposed to here in Montreal? Like, I know this is not a Patrice
The
Bernier
difference
interview,
is
but I just
here,
want to.
yes, everything is scrutinized. So all those players, no matter if they're 20 years old, if when I came in, I was 32, so I'm much more experienced than them, is because you're scrutinized. You can never get out. No matter if you don't read the media, your family reads the media, your friends reads the media. They know what's happening, and they say things. And then they're your family or your family. Why are you playing? You're better than that guy. So you believe it also. You already believe yourself that you're better than the others, but so you're always in that. I remember I will always take the words of Xavi Hernandez before he now deemed one of the best midfielders in the world. He said, I wanted to leave Barca. They were kicking me out. They saying that I didn't deserve to play there, that I wasn't there. And then Pep Guardiola comes in, bang, 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 him and Iniesta, and now the best midfielders in the world in the history of football. But he had the pressure over there and having to want to leave. If you recall, I don't know if you know his story, but he was this close to go to Milan.
Yeah.
And then didn't go. And then the story changes. But the factor is when you play at home, as Adi mentioned, okay, it's like your family member. You always expect more from people who are in your family to have higher potential, even though just like parents, when they watch their kids play, they see their kids much better than what they actually are. Some are, but some not necessarily. And it's much more difficult, and you're more criticized. It's like when you go in the car. I'm pretty sure some kids who train go in the car, and their parents like, you could have played better, could have played better. And so that's what, when you're the local player, is the ceiling is always a bit higher because they expect you to do more. They expect you to be always have the heart every game. You cannot. You can maybe be less talented, but you have to show the people that you care about playing here more than the others. So that comes with the responsibilities those guys have, and when you play locally. So I won't say it's the pressure of playing with your friends. It's just you're always in that bubble, and it never goes away. Samuel Piet, it doesn't go away. He may say I don't read, but somebody tells him what's been said about this, or somebody says, "Hey, heard there was a fight. Who was it?" Blah blah blah. They're always in it. I was always in it. No matter if I told my families not to read the newspaper or whatever, there's always somebody telling you something about her, and then when you hear about it, then you start thinking about it, but you don't want to think about it. So,
yeah, very important to not forget like the mental aspect of the family talking to you and their own expectations. And Pat just said it very, very well. Like, you have that mental aspect that comes with your family, and it's the same not only for soccer players but for everybody, for every professional, right? So moving on, guys, we talked about Jonathan saying, well, we're gonna do Sebastian Breza and Logan Ketterer together. We can give a grade for each one, and I'll ask a couple of questions for them together. So Andy, how much would you give to Breza, and how much would you give to Ketterer?
I mean, it's so hard to give a backup that I think has played. One has played 0 games, and the other one has played maybe 1. So I guess the best grade I'll give him is a B for being a good sportsman. I don't know. I don't know what to grade them. B.
Okay, both of them. Pat, do you have any other grades than B?
I'm like Andy. We haven't seen them. They're backup goalkeepers. Difficult to manage somebody. It's not like the Breza when he played was outstanding to really show that he deserves a spot. It's difficult. I would go here just like Andy. I think just giving them a grade because they were there, and that they're helping the number one goalkeeper stay at his position, if you could say. So B.
Elias, same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Good.
Yeah, you're doing a backup. Shout out Logan Ketterer.
I thought you were gonna give him an A just because Logan Ketterer is in that group.
Well, we're talking about this season. Last year he was an A+. This season he didn't play. So
okay, moving on. I have a couple of questions for them and regarding them. Andy, I'll start with you. We all know Sebastian Breza. We all know how much presence he has.
Yes.
And honestly, I'm going to be super honest. I'm not a fan of returns, by the way, and everybody knows here on the Ball as well. So when he came back, I was a bit worried that he was going to take too much place in a dressing room and maybe affect the atmosphere in a dressing room. And you know what? In a way, he didn't. And he was very implicated. I know that we saw him quite a few times during penalties, very much within the team. We felt that Sebastian Breza really was part of that team, even if he didn't play that much. At the same time, and that's the first question, the attitude of Sebastian Breza, I think, was very, very interesting. And at the same time, do we need an experienced goalkeeper as number 3? So that's the two questions for you, guys.
Okay, so the kind of role that Sebastian Breza brought this season, honestly, I just when I would go to a stadium, it almost felt like he was kind of a team cheerleader in the sense of like he was cheering them on. He was like a ball boy, always like going for the ball and giving it to. So it seemed like he was very, very involved and very like vocal with his teammates in a good way. For me, the way I see this position, somebody needs to compete, like kind of push Jonathan Sirois to be the best version of himself by competing with him. And it just didn't feel like Breza brought that to the team, brought that to that room. Ketterer, I don't know. I think it's always good for any team, in my opinion, to have an experienced insurance goalkeeper if you want. I think it's important. I think CF Montreal has had issues in the past where they were missing goalies because of injury and other things. So I don't want to bring that up, but yeah, it's always good to have insurance goalies. That's
What was his name? Nietzsche, Niche,
Christian Nietzsche. Christian Nietzsche.
Christian Nietzsche, exactly. We'll never forget that name. I did, but yeah. Elias, anything you want to add on Breza and Ketter?
Yeah, you just don't want Jonathan Serrois to get complacent, right? So
it's important to
Sebastian
have a
Breza's
reliable.
Exactly. It's not making him work hard enough. Then maybe you look and find someone that could push Jonathan Serrois a little bit more, because you don't want him to be I'm the automatic starter and there's nothing you could do about it.
Pat, would you choose a younger goalkeeper as number 3, or would you feel that it's better to have an experienced one like Logan Ketterer? And what is the role of a third goalkeeper in these instances, in your opinion?
No, I'm a believer that when you're going third goalkeeper, it should be a young player, because you want him to groom. Look, that's how Jonathan Serrois got where he is now. Mm-hmm. When you look at it, he was signed as third goalkeeper. There was Clément Diop, there was James Pantemis, and then they were signed. They sent him on loan, and 2 years later, he's the number 1. So meaning that he kind of got groomed to be at that position. Now, I always think that depends on who's the number 1. If he's young, I think the second guy should be somebody who's got experience, who's supposed to not cater but help this player progress in terms of situationally how it goes. And then the third, usually you want, I think depends on which club you're in but if you're a club that's counting on young players, then you want somebody that's from the U19 or the reserve team to maybe be the third goalkeeper and goes to play with the reserve, but is there, and that potentially could be there in 2-3 years, depending on what happens there, because it depends on what happens. But look, third goalkeeper, I think until you have a third one, it's always good, because there was times there was only 2, and then and if you have one that's reliable, who's there, who does the job, then you keep him, because goalkeepers, there's always an issue during the year, and you see there was a situation with Columbus, if I'm correct. They couldn't even get the MLS Next Pro guy to come and play. So
they had Logan Ketterer.
So you got the third goalkeeper who's there and is reliable. That's the most important, is in case something happens to the 1 or 2, the third guy can go in and do the job.
Yeah, 100%. Interesting. Moving on to central defenders. We'll start with the leadership group. Someone that's in the leadership group, Joel Waterman. I'll start with you, Elias. Joel Waterman. How do you rate this player, Canadian men's national team central defender?
B-, I think. B-.
Look, it's difficult to give to a team who took over 60 goals, positive ratings. So that's the reality. The goalie is a different story, because at the end of the day, he's the one blocking shots, but there's people letting the people go through. So it's difficult. I'll give a B-. I'm going to be generous. B-.
Andy? B. Okay, so B-, B. So there's kind of a consensus there. The question that we always ask ourselves, Elias, what's his best position?
His best position, his best position is the right-sided center back. The thing is, he's needed in the middle right now. That back 3 that ended the season was very strong, and they clearly have some chemistry going. And of the 3, you need Joel Waterman in the middle. So I think by de facto, he's grown into it a lot, especially when you consider where he started last season. But like Pat said, right, you concede 60 some odd goals in a season, and you are the anchor of that defense. Obviously, people are going to look at you. You ended the season well, so that's why I think we're looking at a bit with rose-tinted glasses. But you still have a lot to answer for next season.
Interesting. anything to add on Joel Waterman, or do we move on? Because I'm going to ask just one question on each player. So if you want to add, go ahead. I won't ask you a question, Pat and Andy. If you're good, we're going to move on to
No, the only part I would say, Joe Waterman, is you see when he goes to the national team, because Jesse Marsh puts the bar very high when he comes back. Now, can you be that guy on a regular basis and not wait for somebody to push you to be that guy? So that's the mantra that he needs in 2025. I assume they're going to sign him a new deal, and that's going to be done. Is that now you really have to be the general and not on and off on a regular basis.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel that he needs to step up a bit more, and I agree with you, Pat. Joaquin Sosa, guys. Let's go for a grade. Andy, Joaquin Sosa. He played a bit more at the beginning of the season, a lot less at the end. What's your grade?
C minus.
C minus. Pat?
Yeah.
I had high potential. I had high hopes for him at the beginning, but yeah,
Same.
I think I'll give him a C.
Okay. And you, Elias?
Yeah, C minus. Honestly, same. He was awesome in preseason, and
Okay.
To me, what did he do besides be an excellent crosser?
And that's the question I'm going to ask you, Andy. Did he show all of his potential? Do you feel that you saw enough from him?
Look, there were times where he was really high up the field, and it looked like he was uncomfortable doing it, but he did it, and he crossed the ball really well. But then there were times where he was just very low, and he still looked uncomfortable in the position. So he always looked uncomfortable in any position he was placed. So what's his position? Is he comfortable in that scheme? In that tactical scheme. So yeah, I don't know if he adapted well to the scheme, but he didn't play the last part of the season. But yeah, I don't know. Don't know if we got to see the best version of him.
We saw him as a left center back and as a left back too, and I kind of agree with you. He wasn't really comfortable. It was rare to see him really comfortable, but I don't know. I don't know if you guys have anything more to say on Joaquin Sosa, or would you like to see more of him?
I'll say, sorry.
No, I mean, he's a lone player, right? So I'm sure that Bologna would like to see more of him. But look, Fernando Alvarez in the last month of the season, he showed how to play that position as well as anyone to play it this season.
Yeah.
So the blueprint is there for Joaquin Sosa. He knows exactly what's needed of him because he saw it played in front of him. So now you have to go out there and do it. He's able. Just do it now.
George Campbell, Patrice Bernier, you're the one that's going to start with the grade. How was the season?
Good end of the season, so I give him B minus.
B minus. Elias?
I'm gonna give it B plus.
Ooh, okay. Andy?
Same, B plus. I love
B
this
plus.
progress.
I'll start with you, Pat, this time. George Campbell, definite starter in 2025. Is he the one
I think
you're
he
going to
finish the season strong? Where we are seeing we've seen him progressed to the player I think Olivier Reyes saw. He's a young player. He's not very old still. But the B minus comes because the beginning of the season, we still saw the same mistakes. But the end of the year, he was solid. He really, some of the games where you go, oh, okay, with the ball, the decision making was better, and without the ball, the covering of the back line was good. So that's why I give him B minus, because I think the beginning of the year was not great, and it upgraded to a B minus. But I understand the B plus also. It could have been in that category.
Very interesting, guys. I kind of agree. I would have said B. So between you guys, so I feel we all agree on the grade, and I feel that we are very positive going forward with George Campbell, which wasn't the case the past two seasons, which I think is very, very interesting. Fernando Alvarez, your turn. Elias, your grade for Fernando Alvarez.
C plus.
Ooh, okay. I'm surprised. Andy?
B minus.
Pat?
I give him B.
Okay. I like that. Pat, you're the one. Fernando Alvarez.
Oh, I
Should
think
we keep him?
it's
time to cash in.
time to cash in. The end of the season. The thing is, Fernando Alvarez, my question is, I think he's better in the middle of the three. And when he's there, I think it suits his game. He reads the play. You could see he's more of a libero than a guy who sticks on the one side and has to defend. So, but I liked him. He's young. We're forgetting that he's much younger than George Campbell. So I saw the progression this year that were interesting. Now it's which position does he play? But yeah, B.
Interesting. I like the fact that he should be in the middle. I kind of agree with you at that point. If you put him in the middle, you have Joel Waterman on the right or George Campbell, and then who's on the left? I don't know.
No, I don't think he's going to go in the middle because I think they want a left-footed guy on the left side of the three. But at the games, I think he played the best was when he was in the middle. He seemed more composed. Maybe because there's more of the field is now right and left and not just your own corridor when you're on the left side. But the kid has some potential and he's learning about the league. So interesting.
Gabriele Corbo, guys, and that's yours. Andy, you start with your grade.
Gabriele Corbo, I'd want to give him a B.
A B. Elias?
B minus.
And you, Pat?
I give him a B.
B. So, Andy, yours this time. Is there a way to bring him back, knowing that he said bye on all social media platforms? So we don't really think he's going to be back, but do you think there's a way? And if there is a way, how? What are the expectations that we should like? What are we offering him?
I think the only way he comes back is if we can promise him some kind of starting position. And if things are going the way we've been reading them the past few weeks, it looks like it's more Joel Waterman that is being granted us a starting position. That's the only way we get him. I think the reason why I gave him a B is because this season he showed us that he's capable of doing a lot. He's very skilled. He's very good in the middle. But is he better than Joel Waterman good to grant him a new contract as opposed to Joel Waterman, who's not younger. He's not younger. I think they're the same age, or I don't know. But anyways, is he good enough to replace Joel Waterman? That's the only way we get him back if there's a guarantee that he has in a starting position. And I don't think that's the case.
I understand that. I'm pretty sure I saw Elias with a smirk because I know you like Gabriele Corbo better than Joel Waterman in the middle of the back three, right, Elias?
Yeah. We're not going to get into it because I could do a whole episode on it.
He's got a beautiful long pass, man.
But just from distribution, it's kind of similar to Fernando Alvarez. Like Pat said, he does remind me of a libero in the way that he wants the ball, he sets the pace. Remember, under Nancy, he was groomed as the heir to Rudy Camacho.
Yeah.
Right? Joel Waterman was on the right side, and Corbo would replace Camacho in the middle for good reason. So I'm not saying that Waterman has done a good job, because especially that last month, he's gotten much better. But you can tell that it's not as natural to him as it is to Corbo or Alvarez.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where he lands. He's very young. He's 24, Gabriele Corbo, and Joel Waterman's 28, so much younger than Gabriele Corbo. Much younger than Joel Waterman. Moving on, and Pat, that's yours. Elias, I think that's yours. Raheem Edwards. Raheem Edwards, you're great.
Raheem Edwards.
Stuff, huh?
Again, it's one of those where it's C plus B minus territory. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and go B minus.
Pat.
Yeah, good question.
I think one of the tougher grades is for Raheem Edwards. We've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly with him.
Yeah, that's the question. So I'll give him B minus.
Andy?
I'm going to be harsh. I'm going to be super harsh. I'm going to say C minus.
C minus?
Yeah, I'm going to be harsh, man.
You know what? Go ahead.
I think he cost us some games. His side.
True.
He cost us some games. Soccer is a team sport, 1000%. But when there's individual mistakes that are very, very obvious, it can cost a game. And I'm being very harsh because I've watched the games over and over again, and I always question maybe it was a lapse of decision, maybe something happened, maybe it won't happen again, but it happened over and over in different games in different situations. You can blame it on fatigue. You can maybe, again, going back to what we were talking about Laurent Cote earlier, the decisions of substituting when maybe he should have been benched and maybe not starting, whatever it may be. But he did cost us some games throughout the year. And I'm not going to say towards the end of the year or towards the beginning of the year. Throughout the year, there were games where he was very sloppy in his position. And I did not understand why they kept starting him. But at the same time, there were games where he played amazing. And he like the Toronto
and
game.
he
that we
won
lost.
us some games.
And he won us some games. Exactly. He won us some games, which is why I'm being very harsh. But at the same time, to me, what stands out more than the games that he won us are the ones that he lost us, because they were bad. And so that's where I'm at. I'm being very harsh, maybe too honest.
Oh, good points. Good points, Andy. I agree. This when when you bring back the perspective that even the Atlanta game, he made some defensive mistakes that cost points.
Yeah,
Even in Chicago, forget it. But Chicago, he took the red card. It was 3-1.
Yeah. No, I agree. Very interesting. So do you feel, guys, that
the way he plays with his hands in the box, the way he defends with his hands in the box, you're like, oh my God, there's a penalty coming. There's a penalty coming, because he likes to. It gives me anxiety every time I say it. I'm like, he's grabbing with his hands. But anyways, sorry.
I don't know. I think you're a bit too harsh. Even if I agree with you, but I feel that he brings something that's very interesting in that team, and I want him back with the team. And I don't know. Let's wait and see, guys. Tom Pierce. Tom Pierce. I think this is going to be a very interesting one. I'll start with you, Pat, and you're the one that's going to talk about him. What is your grade for Tom Pierce?
It comes half season. I think he got interesting things to bring, so I'll give him a B for joining into the team and bringing a spark for a short period of time.
Elias?
B- for the same reason, but there's elements he needs to work on before I can bump that up.
Andy? B? Okay. He needs to work on his Baba Ganoush, that's for sure. I don't know if you guys watched the video, but
he tried. He tried.
He tried. Oh.
I didn't watch.
Pat, Tom Pierce, you said that nowadays left wing back has to be more offensive, and defensively it's not very important in a way. Do you feel that
it's not that it's not important, but wing backs are now offensive tools, so they have to be able to bring. They're the wingers. Unless you're playing with wingers, they're the guys who bring the width. So when you have one guy who's there, he's either a good dribbler, fast, pacey, or he's a very good crosser. And Tom Pierce is a good crosser. So that's his tool. Now defending, I think he has work to do there, but you can work on that. His positioning, his understanding to when to be. But if he can't bring output, which brings to, we're going to probably talk about Bugai, who doesn't bring the offensive output. And then you're like, okay, what does he bring? Even though he's defensively, maybe more defensively sound, but on a team who wants to attack, you need those guys to be able to have offensive output.
No, I completely agree with that assessment, Pat, 100%. But at the same time, and there's something that you didn't talk about, but I feel his stamina is a bit off. Like, he seems very, very tired when he started. When he had a couple of starting, when he was starting a couple of games, like he would tire like very, very quickly.
Yeah, but remember, he didn't have a club for the entire half a season, right? He was training on his own.
Yeah, but like even at the end of the season, he was only, coming for bits of the of the game for like 20, 30 minutes. And you could see that he couldn't run. He couldn't make all the runs, and that's for me a bit concerning. And hopefully you're right, Elias. Hopefully it's because he didn't have a preseason. But as of right now, with the information that we had and the cameo that we've seen, it's a bit of a concern, no, Pat?
Look, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt because he came during halfway season. If I remember, they said we will see him in the next few weeks, and he ended up coming into play 2 weeks later. So I feel that they accelerated his process. Didn't really have a preseason, didn't have a team, so I assume that his volume is very sporadic in terms of coming into a season where he was like accelerated into a starting lineup, played in League's Cup, played against Mexican teams. It's not I got nothing against Mexican teams, but they're technical teams. And then when you go into the league, it's a very athletic league. So I think he kind of got entrusted into two styles that kind of told him, oh, I will play really well in this league because League's Cup, I'm dominating. And then I'm playing against these guys that are fast-paced, quick, Aaron Brooks and everything and all that stuff. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt of having a proper preseason and being able to build himself to know what he needs to withstand playing as a left wing back.
Interesting. I like that. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt too. I feel that but he needs to be better prepared physically for next year. Moving on, Jaquil Marshall-Rutty. The grade, Andy, your turn. What's the grade that you would give to JMR?
I'll say B.
B, okay.
And what B minus? Sorry.
Elias? B minus? Elias?
I'm gonna give him a B.
B? Pat?
B minus.
Okay, I thought that you would be harsher because every time we weren't really impressed by JMR. When we went at KNFC. Andy, do you feel? Don't forget that it's the player that had received an offer for $15 million to sign with Bayern Munich, if I'm not mistaken, in the past. Do you feel that he can fulfill his potential here in Montreal?
Yes, I do believe he can fulfill it. But as we saw towards the last few games, you could tell that he started getting a little bit more braver on the offensive end. And that's really where his name is going to stand out and where the scouts are going to start seeing the stats more than the defensive work, that he's doing. So yeah, I do think he can fulfill his potential here. We have to see more offensive output from him.
Yeah, no, I agree. We have to see more offensive output to be more decisive in a final third. That's what's going to be very important. Last but not least, with the players that are in the squad, David Bugai. Pat, I'll let you start with his grade.
If I gave Jaquil B minus, then I'm going to give him a C. So because he's one of the players who came in where I didn't really have expectations for him, but I don't think he won his spot. Even though yes, Jaquil came in for 1 million points a GAM and stuff like that. So, but he's the only one that I haven't. I don't know yet what he will bring to the team. He's defensively sound, but offensively, I haven't seen much of him, and enough to see that he can really win that right wing back position.
No, I agree. It's been it was not a big cameo, but at the same time, I wasn't really impressed with what I've seen from him. So I think we're all in agreement. I don't know. You didn't give your grades, Elias and Andy, if I'm not mistaken, on Bugai.
Yeah,
it's a C.
C. Same. Okay. We all agree. We all agree on that. These were the defenders for this year of CF Montreal. We have 2 more questions, and we should be able to close out the show. The first one, guys, the loanees. Jabang, Duty, Torkelson, should any one of these players be back and be part of the squad in 2025? We all know that Duty and Jabang are playing with the Las Vegas Lights. Duty was on the bench in the playoff game. Jabang played as a starter in the midfield, but also as a center back, as you told us, Andy, off before we started the show. Torkelson hasn't been playing much in his club in Europe. She's still under contract with CF Montreal. Do we think that they have a place in the squad in 2025? Lights.
Yes, for both. Duty and Jabang. Let me talk.
Okay.
No, look, Torkelson hasn't played since like July, I think. So I think he's gonna come back from his loan. It's gonna be, thank you and good luck. But Jabang and Duty both put in really good shifts, and I've heard really good things about them. And they both played in very versatile positions. Duty played on both the left and the right side of the defense, and was offensively very potent for just half a season.
Very
he got
good
4 assists.
Yeah.
And Jabang played in the midfield, and he held his own. And I think having someone physically imposing that can play that stalwart defensive midfield role, not dissimilar to Samuel Piet, but maybe adding a bit more size to the midfield, because that is one thing that is missing if Victor Wanyama leaves. I think there's definitely a spot for both of them. And especially if, there's going to be Leagues Cup and Canadian Championship and all this stuff, that when the schedule gets heavy and you need to rotate, I think there is room for them.
Anything else to add, guys?
Yeah, I don't think Duty should come back. I think he should go back on loan. That's it.
Okay, so for you, it's only Jabang that should come back.
Yeah.
And not Torkelson, of course.
Depending on the situation of Joel Waterman and Gabriela Corbo, how clogged up that position is, I think Jabang should be the only one that comes back.
Patrice?
I think they will come to camp, but then after that, can they outshine players that are there already? Maybe like Duty. Let's remember Duty. Now he has Jaquil Marshall-Rudy and the guy in his position. He may be a good player, but I think he might have to go on loan again until they decide, or something happens with the two, or he really has an outstanding camp. But I don't see him. I would see him going back on loan because the position is full.
Unless David Bugay gets that right center back position, because he's a bit more defensive. That's a possibility there and opens up a place as a right wing back. But let's wait and see. We don't know what's going to happen in the preseason. Last but not least, Pat, it's going to be a bit of your question. Academy. When we had Laurent Courtois here on the pod, we asked him about the next players that could join the club in the preseason and that could be part of that roster. We're just going to talk about the defenders that he talked about. We'll talk about the midfielders and the strikers, of course, in the next show when we talk about those players. He talked about Sergei Kozlovsky and Félix Sanson. He said that there were very good prospects. Do you feel that they're there and they can be part of that team in 2025?
No, I think Sergei is quite young, and from what I understand, Sergei didn't have the greatest of the year. So now he had a good camp. I think he caught the eye of the coach. But now, is he one of the players that kept on going to camp, going with the first team this year? I don't remember hearing his name this summer going with the first team. So far, I don't see him. I saw Alexander Guboglu. I saw some other kids who were there who may have a better shot. And talk about Duty, Alexander Guboglu plays right wing back. So, they might want to have to choose between a young player from their own or a player that they drafted. But no, those two, I did not hear about them coming to during the summer regularly. So they might be names that they forementioned to come to the camp, but I think there's other players who are ahead of them who were probably perceived to maybe have a shot to sign with the team or stay with the team during camp next in 2025.
Interesting. Let's wait and see what's gonna happen. Patrice Bernier, thank you very much for being here with us today for 2 hours and 12 minutes now. Very, very interesting. As you know, the GOAT, Patrice Bernier, as simple as that. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure, Elias, Sandy, and Adi. To another time, and we'll see the next week's what it gives us. Sports director, players, who knows? It's never boring, as I say, with the CF Montreal. So.
Exactly. It's never boring. Elias, Andy, as usual, thanks a lot for being here with me every week. Very, very interesting. Guys, as you know, I always say that our content is always going to be free. This is how we want to work. It's not going to change. But in case you want to help us grow the product, make sure to join our Patreon page and become our Patreon so we can, of course, grow that product and bring it somewhere else. This is it for tonight for this episode of The Ball is Round. We'll see you next week for episode 203 of The Ball is Round.